Hello and welcome everyone. Can everyone hear me? Can everyone see me? Most importantly, hello and welcome. If you can, maybe you can say who you are and where you're from. I see people are already doing that. South Africa. We've got people from Glasgow, Houston, from India, from Bulgaria, from Pennsylvania, in the Highlands of Scotland. Apparently they have better internet than we do. So welcome everybody on this very hot and sticky night in London. I don't know if it's hot and sticky where you are, but it certainly is where we are. So I just wanted to thank everyone for being here and for tuning in. As you probably know, we're having a webinar with Dominika and Elsie from BYBI Beauty. But before we kick off, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. You will receive a replay of this webinar. So watch out for that in your inboxes tomorrow. I don't know what time it will be, but at some point tomorrow we will send it out. And I encourage you to ask loads and loads of questions as we go along. So I can ask them to Dominika and Elsie and you can hear what they have to say. So without further ado, welcome to you both.
Hello.
Do you just want to each take it in turns to introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are and like what your role is at BYBI?
Sure.
Yeah, so I am. We'll go over each other. Okay, I'll go then. My name's Dominika. I am co-founder of Clean Beauty Co. and BYBI Beauty. And loosely, I guess the business, we very much kind of jointly work on all areas of the business, but I guess my focus is internal operations. So I'm very much involved in the manufacturing, the packaging, the compliance and the formulation. And Elsie.
So I'm Elsie. So I'm also co-founder of Clean Beauty Co. and BYBI. And I kind of spearhead the creative side of things, so branding, marketing, and yeah, the kind of outward part of the business.
So do you guys want to sort of just give us an overview of how you got into sort of clean, green, natural beauty and why you found the industry so excited and why you wanted to get involved in the sector?
Yeah, sure. So our story started when we met while we were working together. So we're actually from advertising backgrounds. So we were working together at the same company and met and got on really well. And our transition to natural beauty was kind of driven by wellness. So I'm sure it's quite a common story, quite a common like journey into natural, but we were thinking a lot about what we were eating and the foods that we were putting into our bodies and sort of turning away from processed food, and then started to translate that to our beauty products and what was in our beauty products basically. So we started out Clean Beauty Co. as a blog, and we were actually writing very basic DIY skincare recipes, so things like quite a lot of food-based stuff, but basically just thinking like, why don't you put a bit of that green smoothie on your face? Because it will have wonderful benefits, basically. And then I guess sort of progressed from there, and our formulations became a little bit more innovative and complex, and we studied with you guys and decided to launch the skincare line last year. And I think for us, what we were really, really excited about was, one, the efficacy of natural. So, switching to natural, we found that it just did a world of good for our skin in terms of the actual effects of the products that we were using. But two, actually, what we were quite excited about was kind of mixing the industry up a little bit, because I guess it's having a bit of a renaissance, or natural beauty as we know it is kind of changing, and the clean beauty movement is rising. And I think for us, we're really excited to kind of spearhead that movement and start to change perceptions of natural beauty and make it more accessible to a wider sort of mainstream beauty audience, because the consumer and the market is really kind of, there's a huge appetite for that. So that's kind of what we were most excited about, I think.
Okay, so I can see actually Oyeta from Okoko Cosmetics has just joined us. So we did our last webinar, our last Meet the Graduate webinar with her. And one of the questions I asked her, which is also what I'm going to ask you, is so which courses of ours did you take, and how do you think they benefited your kind of formulation knowledge, and were you able to implement a lot of things into your business as a result of taking the course?
Dominika, do you want to take that one?
I think she's slightly frozen.
I think she's frozen. Oh no. Okay. I can.
Okay.
So I did the diploma in natural skincare formulation, and we did that probably a couple of years ago now. We started it. So we had already started the blog and started out the kind of beginnings of Clean Beauty Co. And the reason that we decided to take the course was I think to start to underpin the kind of like research, like there's so much so much information out there, and I think we were really keen to start to underpin that with some scientific knowledge, rather than just basing everything of our kind of like recipes and formulation on we're finding on Google and experimenting. And also I think what we were really excited about outside of that was joining the community as well, because we're new to this industry, completely new. So, you know, for us, the kind of opportunity to bounce ideas off of your fabulous, like huge community and have very experienced formulators look at our formulations was really, really attractive, because we kind of needed that level of like experience and kind of discipline to kind of start to harness the way that we went for to create the line. So and then I think, Dom, you have also done the chocolate.
That's what it was. Sorry, I turned my mic off. I turned my mic off, so I didn't get feedback. So I was just talking and then realized no one could hear me. Sorry. Yeah, I did the chocolate spa making course, which I really enjoyed. But I think it was just, we were very much in skin food. So we were thinking a lot about how food-based ingredients could be applied. And we did bounce around ideas about potentially having some sort of like fresh line and sort of DIY boxes and all of that kind of stuff, but it was really difficult obviously to scale using fresh fruit and vegetables. But some of the offshoot courses were really exciting for me, like the chocolate spa making and facial therapy and the facial mask course as well. I've always been super into like spas and doing my own treatments and stuff, so I really enjoyed some of those like lesser known courses. But I think it was really interesting to see how different ingredients could be utilized and really experimented with as well, because I think just generally in natural formulation it lacks a bit of innovation, and it's just fun to see a little bit of experimentation and kind of pushing the boundaries there as well.
Cool. I've got some questions coming through for you guys. So I guess you guys can choose which one of you can best answer them. So my first one is from Ellie. So she said, was packaging design and sourcing packaging manufacturers a difficult process for you? She's saying for her it was so she works at Skin Probiotics, and she said for her it was a challenge because she wanted to keep the probiotics alive. Tell us about your experience with packaging design and sourcing packaging manufacturers.
Yeah, I think it's really challenging, and it's the fundamentals of your business, so you have to get it right. I think you need to do a job of selling in all your suppliers to your business and your business plan and your growth aspirations as much as you're their customer as well. So I think it's really important to go into any meetings with any suppliers from a packaging or manufacturing perspective armed like you would if you were selling to a retailer or selling to an investor or selling to a customer. So that really helped us in the early stages of building really good relationships with some of these external manufacturing, external suppliers. So when things got challenging, we had a really good relationship to communicate and work through issues. And it's probably the part of the business that has caused us the most amount of stress and has been the most difficult, because just in every function of those kind of manufacturing suppliers, warehousing, shipping, logistics, there just seems to be a lot of room for error, and things tend to go wrong just like quite often. And a great skill is to be able to manage those periods of kind of fluctuation and issue, and, you know, managing expectations with, you know, your customers or your retailers, and having, again, really good relationships there, because just generally things go wrong quite a lot, and that's very normal. I think there's always massive delays with packaging. I mean, packaging is really challenging, and sourcing anything that's like not a stock item is really challenging and takes a long time. So I think particularly around packaging, you need to forecast for big windows of time. Like if you're ordering anything that's custom made that requires shipping, it's like 6 months lead time that you should really be working to, because there's sampling, there's like, you know, matching colors, there's, you know, often you have to make several tweaks before you're happy with the final run, and then they actually run it, and then you have to ship it. So like with packaging, allow for double the time that you expect, essentially, is one thing I would say.
Wow, yeah, that sounds like you've learned a few lessons in that area.
Yeah, a few hard lessons.
Okay, so Lorraine actually has asked, how did you initially choose which formulations you wanted to start with when you launched your business? There's so much choice for a formulator and it can get a bit overwhelming. So how did you narrow it down to Babe Balm, Prime Time, and your other incredible products such as Mega Mist?
Hi, Lorraine. So yeah, I think for us, we know that we will stay firmly within skincare, and we like the whole point of BYBI is just to make like really, really great skincare. So that, you know, narrows us down to a certain extent in that, you know, we've got a good focus there. To be completely honest, the way that we approach new product development is first and foremost based on what we want as consumers, which, you know, sounds a bit crazy, but we were in a meeting the other day and somebody was saying, I think it was an investor, and they were saying they look for businesses where the founders are the target audience and are the, like, you know, the key consumer, which sounds like it's a really obvious thing, but actually in a lot of businesses it isn't. So we use our kind of like wants as a consumer first and foremost to start to shape the type of product that we want to create. We then extend that out to our team as well. So we have a team of 4 full-time employees. So we do quite a lot of brainstorming as a group to kind of like start to bounce ideas off each other. So that's the kind of like first part of our new product development. And then the second is we keep a hawk eye on the industry and key kind of trends that we see coming up in terms of product categories and key ingredients. And we sort of take those two things and then that starts to dictate the type of product that we want to create. And I think with our early lines, so, you know, Babe Balm, Prime Time, Mega Mist that you referenced there, they were actually kind of evolutions of initial recipes. We would call them recipes now. They're recipes in the book. You can find them in our book. So Babe Balm was a recipe that we had called Fuss Free, which was like this really basic like balm. And we basically developed that and kind of, you know, made it a little, what did I say? Zooped up, made it a bit more innovative. But, you know, all of those started with products that us as beauty consumers really wanted, because, you know, we are target audience. So ultimately we understand what's lacking in our skincare routine and also across the market. So we look to kind of like fill those gaps with the products that we create.
Cool. I have some other this is a good question because I'm sure there was multiple challenges, but Bridget has asked, what was your greatest challenge getting started?
We have so many.
So many challenges.
Hard to pick one.
I think, I mean, and obviously the plunge moment where you're like, yeah, let's do this. You know, let's just throw in the day job and just, you know, go for this. I think the investment piece is always really challenging. We're going through a second round at the moment. We're, you know, right in the meat of it. And it is really challenging because it's probably the only time we get criticized as well. Typically, people are quite receptive and you know, positive around the brand. And even from a consumer perspective, we don't really get many negative reviews. Investors are the only ones that tend to like really get in there and give their opinions. So I definitely think investment is always challenging, and just generally financing the business. I mean, we are running a really tight ship. You know, we're essentially one in, one out. And in terms of invoices and payments, and it can be quite stressful just balancing your books and making sure that you've got all your creditors paid and you're chasing your debtors, basically. So I would say finance is definitely an ongoing, continual big challenge for us.
I mean, one of the things I found kind of incredibly inspiring about your story was that you said that, I think it was at the conference when people were asking you about that, you said that, you didn't just ditch your day jobs, that you guys like had a plan and you saved and you saved and you saved and you saved. So, I mean, how important was that planning process in where you are today? I mean, would you have been able to do it without all of that kind of quite meticulous planning?
Look, the plan is a completely different plan now that we had then. I mean, the plan changed like pretty much day one. The plan changes every day, Gemma, to be honest.
So does ours.
You have to be able to pivot. That's the key. That is the key bit of advice we give anyone. Roll with the changing of plans. I think the best bit of planning that we did ahead of going at it full throttle was financial planning personally. So we planned financially for the business, but yeah, like that plan changes. I mean, that just changes the whole time, right? So we had some idea of where we needed to go and what we needed to do, of course, but that developed and evolved. The plan for us financially to be able to support ourselves without needing to rely on a salary for the business for at least a year was the only way that we were able to do it. So I would say if you are still in a situation where you are in full-time employment and you haven't quite sort of gone full-time on the business, then make sure that you won't have the additional pressure of struggling personally financially, because that will start to drive you into making decisions that aren't driven for the best for the business, and taking quick money when sometimes that's not the right thing to do. So I would say that was the best bit of planning that we did, was just making sure that we both felt comfortable enough. And this is also, if you have a co-founder, make sure that you guys are on the same page with that as well. So, we were really open with each other. Like, we've saved X amount. Like, we think we can live on it for this long. Like, this is what my outgoings are. Like, we were super, super open with each other about that. And we both knew that we were coming at it from a really equal angle. And that was the best thing that we could have done, because it meant that we could survive without a salary. We survived on our savings. We essentially put that into the business, and we could do that for X amount of time without feeling a pressure from either of us. And it was very even as well. So that would be the best advice that I would give in terms of planning.
So we've got loads and loads of questions coming through. I'm just going to start with one that you might be able to answer, and then try and figure out the best order to ask them in. And guys, I know that you've got loads of questions. I might not be able to fit them all in, but I'm going to try and pick the ones that Dominika and Elsie have never ever covered, because we're going to be releasing a podcast with them, etc., etc. So they do speak quite a lot about their.
There's so many questions here. I've only just looking at them.
So one of the one that's come up a couple of times is: did you feel ready to launch your business after taking the diploma in organic skincare formulation?
Yeah, I think it really inspired us. It really inspired us to take that plunge, and I think it really invigorated the fact that we were operating in a really exciting space, and that there was ample opportunity for a brand like ours to succeed. So while the brand was kind of underway once we were doing the diploma, not in its position as it is now, but we were already kind of formulating. We were running Clean Beauty Co. We already had a platform. We were already running a business as such. But I think it really solidified the fact that there was room for a brand like ours, and there was a massive opportunity, both in terms of market, so a monetary value, but also the fact that there's so many great ethics and principles and practices that are involved in natural skincare formulation. And it was really important for a brand to start scaling and becoming mainstream and bringing those practices into the mainstream. So I think it was a really inspiring course, and just being involved in this community. And, you know, the Formula Botanica community, we always look at it so fondly, and we love to meet people, and loads of people contact us, you know, saying that they're either thinking about doing the course or they're on the course. And we love to engage with that community, because the community around Clean Beauty Co is our lifeline, and it's got us to where we are. And we're a big believer in sharing ideas, you know, being really transparent with how we do things, and building that community. So we're super happy to just, you know, we'd pay just to be involved in the Formula Botanica community and get that like leg into it. Great people there.
Your guys,
don't quote me on that,
is good as well. The Beauty Co platform, I mean, it's such an amazing kind of like one-stop shop for all the sort of like natural and green beauty stuff. It's a great platform. If no one's checked it out, I really encourage you to go and do that. I know quite a few of our community members have already had a look. So I've got another question about your packaging, and someone has asked, a couple of times about it. Is it biodegradable?
Yeah, so we use, we have glass where possible, obviously because it's infinitely recyclable, but it's not practical for like travel products and obviously our balm and lip balms to be in glass. So we wanted to find a plastic alternative to that. So the alternative that we found was a material made from sugarcane, which can actually, it's recyclable, so it can actually be recycled once in its kind of lifetime. And if it doesn't, or once it has been recycled once, then it will, over a long period of time, as in long enough not for the product to just disintegrate in it, it will degrade. Yes, is the answer to that. There's a lot going on in that space, and I think you can see that just walking down a high street these days, like starting to, even the Prets of the world are starting to kind of like wise up to the kind of plastic issue that we have. So month on month there's new innovation going on. To be totally transparent, if you do opt for a material or kind of biomaterial like that, at the moment it does cost a little bit more. But that, for us, there's no question about that. We'll take that hit because we want to kind of be setting a standard as a responsible company. And it's harder to find suppliers currently, but our view is that talk to us in 6 months, 12 months, that would be a totally different landscape just because of the amount of innovation that's going on within the space. Our current sort of bugbear is that the lids to the tubes are plastic still. We can't find a sugarcane version of that. We found wooden, but they still coat it in plastic. So it's like, what's the point? So if anybody finds a lid to the tubes, let us know. Like, that's what we're like desperately trying to work on at the moment. So there are limitations with going down the kind of route with these sort of materials, but in our eyes, it's well worth it. It's a key like element of what the brand stands for and what we want to set within the beauty industry. So yeah, that is my answer.
I think when you start to peel back the layers, when you start to peel back the layers of packaging, which is something that we started to do and are still doing, it becomes a very murky world. And we are putting a lot of practices into play to make sure that we're doing the best across every element of our packaging, from cartons, making sure we're not using any glosses that contain silicons or acrylics, which make them unrecyclable, from foiling, we're using recycled or FFC cardboard, the tubes, biodegradable material. We're making sure we're not labeling our bottles anymore. We're actually spraying now onto the labels on our next run of packaging, onto our bottles, because you have to take the label off in order for it to be recyclable, and that's quite a difficult message to communicate to the consumer. So while ethics around formulation are really important to us, so is sustainability around packaging. And I would really take your time to do that education that you work with and drill down into if they say they're sustainable, if they say they're green, like what does that mean, and find the information around recycling or the best end use of the product or the packaging, so you can communicate to your customer as well.
I have a question from Anna, which is a question that comes up a lot, especially when people first join our community, or they might have a bit of formulation experience and they're thinking of starting a business. And one of the things they always ask us is, what how do you find ingredient suppliers, and what are your experience with working with ingredient suppliers? So as you guys are now stocked in a lot of places, you've obviously had to work quite hard at building relationship with these suppliers. So, you know, what is your experience with that? You know, is it hard? Is it, I know that you said packaging was probably the key challenge. I mean, where does ingredients sit within the difficulty scale?
Yeah, I think that
I think
sorry, we're not together right now. So that's where we go. Just, yeah.
So from an ingredients perspective, there's obviously like the classic players, like, you know, Naturally Thinking, Grace Fruit, that, you know, and they're pretty good if you're planning on making things that yourself. I think from a mass scale supplier perspective, we have been lucky, obviously, working with the manufacturer because they have a lot of those relationships already. But we've just hired an MPD executive who we're working with internally on new product development. And there's a lot of reaching out to these suppliers directly, as long as you work for a company, rather than if you pitch yourself as like an individual. As long as you're pitching yourself as a company, they tend to be quite open with sending samples and really engaging with you. So we haven't had too much trouble from an ingredients perspective. Finding a lab in London has been more challenging, which we've been speaking to Gemma about. And I saw a floating question about labs generally. So TBC, because we are trying to find a good London cosmetic chemistry lab. But yeah, I think work with the manufacturer. Sorry.
Okay. So Claudia has said, how do you approach retailers and sell your products to them? Did you already have contacts in the industry?
No, we didn't. We are not from the industry. There was a kind of like two-pronged approach to how we secured the retailer deals that we did. The first was around the first product that we launched was Babe Balm. It was quite strategically packaged and named, and we did a fairly strategic PR campaign around it to get it into the hands of some of the kind of biggest names in the UK's beauty industry. And what that then translated to was a number of these retailers contacting us after seeing us on Instagram. So the first was around making a lot of noise socially to get our one product, we had one SKU at the time, kind of out there and on people's radars. So retailers like ASOS, for example, actually approached us, Urban Outfitters approached us because of the success of that PR thing. So, you know, when you're investing money in PR, marketing, packaging, branding, all of that kind of outward facing stuff, always be thinking, you know, this isn't just for the end consumer. This is actually going to help me pick up, you know, wholesalers, investors, you know, other like mentors, just everybody. The first, you know, point of call to look at a brand is looking at their social pages. So just make sure that like you put some thought and some time into that. Secondary, we're from sales backgrounds. We're like through and through sales girls. When we were working in advertising, it was ad sales. So we put together a pipeline of retailers that we wanted to appear in. We split it up, and we basically just did like really old school stalking on LinkedIn, finding the buyer, guessing their email address, cold calling them until they got back to us. And just being tenacious in terms of like working out how to get into these names. And that's how we secured the likes of BYBI, Oliver Bonus, Harvey Nichols. So that was actually just about being really, really proactive and just a good sales strategy, basically. And, you know, I think part of that is about finding the right people to contact. So LinkedIn's such a great tool, just use that. Even Instagram. So a lot of these beauty buyers now will have their own Instagram accounts because they get sent so much. So just a little bit of research on Instagram, you'll probably find like the skincare buyer at like Feel Unique or whatever, you know, they're actually pretty active. So that's a good way of tracking down buyers. And then just having a good retail deck. So I would say like nice and visual, not too long, key points around pricing, and just a good intro email. I mean, we had like 2 paragraphs, like, this is why our brand's different. This is why we think we're good for, you know, ASOS or Harvey Nichols, and then, yeah, like following it up from there. So you can do it even if you start from zero contacts at all in the industry. It's actually like easier than you think. You've just got to be a little bit like think outside the box with the way that you contact these people.
So there were some interesting anecdotes about going to the Guardian mailroom. Was that you?
Yeah, that was at the beginning. Oh gosh, that was so annoying. That was for PR though. That was before we hired our PR agent, and we were like loosely like getting names of journalists from like articles on beauty, and then we were just like turning up at like not even the mailroom. We would turn up at the reception, and the reception were like, you can't just drop parcels here, man. Like you need to find the mailroom, and we're like, oh my god. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. Hire a PR agent is another part of advice.
Okay, let's have a look at some of the more questions. Okay, so I've got one from Zoe that says, how long after the Formula Botanica course did you launch your brand?
So we finished the Formula Botanica course at the end of 2016. So December 2016, and we launched BYBI in August 2017. So it was about 6 months, but those two things were not intentional. We were studying and we finished the course, but if we hadn't finished the course, we still would have launched BYBI, for example. So I think we got through the meaty part of the course quite quickly, and it was just the final kind of projects that were holding us up. So I would say that we had done the bulk of that before we'd even, the summer previous. So we definitely weren't waiting for Formula Botanica to finish before we did anything. We were actively kind of getting up and going. But that's kind of very much our personalities. We're not very patient. We're not studiers, we're goers. So,
you're doers.
Yeah.
So I've got a question from Jenny saying, how challenging did you find it to grow to the next level? And what advice would you give for this? I guess the advice on scaling, how you scale.
I mean, we've still got a long way to go in terms of scaling. We still view ourselves as at the beginning. It's sometimes like really hard to like stop and take stock of what you've achieved so far. And because when you're scaling, it's like you kind of don't realize that it's happening. It's like, when somebody like a child grows and then you're like, oh my God, you've grown so much. Sorry, no, I don't know what I'm doing with that comparison there. That's just, I don't know. Like, it makes sense in my head, but then it suddenly didn't make sense. So yeah, I don't know what advice I would have on scaling, because we don't feel like we're just in it every day. So it's really hard to kind of like recognize when we do scale. I guess, for us, the significant scaling will now be from like getting the business to where it is today to probably where we're looking to go in the next kind of 2 years in terms of like revenue target and team growth. And I guess the advice around that is, have a clear goal and a clear vision in place, both financially and more generally a kind of like good vision for the brand. And if it will kind of help you get there, because you've always got it in mind, and make sure that everybody that's working with you is working to the same goal and the same vision. And you can, it's then going to help you like scale to the next stage. A lot of what we do is kind of like, as I said earlier, like making plans and then changing them, and then not being afraid to kind of like do that change and pivot. And I'm sorry, that was a really bad answer. I just
No. I think you get the question. Well, it's difficult to if you're in it all the time, sometimes the process or the advice might come in like 5 years time.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. I feel like ask me that question in a few years and I'll probably have a way better, like well thought out answer for you, because what we do at the moment is just like feel our way and go with gut instinct a lot of the time and just do what we feel is right for. But what we do well, the two of us, is work to a very, very concise vision of what we want for the brand. So I think, having that like that goal and that key in mind is how you scale.
Okay, so one of the things that you've been asked about a lot, and I know that loads of you asked you when you were at the conference last year, is about investing. And Kimberly has asked, how do we start looking for investors?
So, I mean, it really depends at what level your business is at and how what your ambitions are for the business as well. So, you know, we are incredibly ambitious about the future of this business because, as I said, we are really committed to the idea of promoting the ethics that we uphold and making that change in the industry. And when I say ambitious, you know, we want our business to be 20, 30, 40 million revenue in the next like 3 to 4 years. And we have that as like a laser vision. You know, we are not on track. We're not, you know, we're not quite there yet, but our revenue is growing. We have, you know, investment plans in place and business plans in place in order to get us to that point. If you are not that ambitious and you want to run a great business that will provide you with a great income and you can scale it comfortably and you're not under pressure with, you know, generating revenue, and you just want a lifestyle business that you want to manage for the next 20 to 30 years, do not go for equity investment because it's the wrong kind of investment. And to be honest, you'll struggle to get investment because investors want quick return on investment and they want to make money, a significant multiplier on their initial investment, particularly in early stage business because it's high risk. So most investors at a seed or pre-seed round will be looking to make 8 to 10x on their initial investment, which is very high. Yeah. So you have to really understand what your plans are for the business and where you want to go and your exit strategy as well. Do you want to pass this down to your daughter and for it to be a generational business, or do you want to exit in 5 years and do something else? So you really have to understand what you want to do. And if it's the lifestyle business, there are ways to fund your business without having to give away equity, loans, financing of invoices, growth finance. So just, you know, either balancing off your creditors or your debtors, overdrafts, grants, R&D, refunds from HMRC, there's so much that you can do without having to give away any part of your business. If you are in the previous category of which we are, which is we want to scale really quickly, you do need cash, and we'll have to at some stage do some sort of equity fundraise. And an equity fundraise is where you set a valuation for your business and you sell a portion of your business to an investor, and then they own a stake in your business, and in exchange you get money from them. So we're going through our second fundraise. We're looking to raise £1 million, which is a substantial amount of money. It changes the conversation from, you know, here's a 5 to 10K investment, let's see how things go. People are, you know, very conscious of what our plans are, where the business is going. We're going to have a lot of revenue goals around the investment that we take, I'm sure. It's going to be a very different picture for us, but it's the path that we want to take. We raised 150K for our pre-seed round. We did that through an extended kind of friends and family network, which is the best place to start in terms of looking for investors. Look to your own network 100%. You know, download all of your contacts, craft a great email, put together a really short punchy deck and just email it to every single person that you know. And you will be shocked at the people that respond and say, hey, like, sounds like a great business. I've always wanted to invest in a startup, but I've never known anyone that's running a business, or I'm not in investor circles. You know, I just sold a house, here's 10K. And there's great tax relief schemes for private investors in the UK, SEIS and EIS. So it's a really interesting route. It's a very challenging route, but it's an interesting one if you have, you know, great ambitions for your brand. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, okay. Zoe has asked another question that's quite interesting. How much did it cost approximately to launch your first product?
So yeah, it's hard to put like an exact amount on that, but a good kind of like pointer for that is we, as Dom just said, we raised 150K in our last round. And the majority of that was used in the process of launching the products the product line that we did. So we've got 9 SKUs. So I'm not saying that, you know, we're paying that exact money to our manufacturer for those, but the whole process of that. So we're talking about the branding, the kind of like design of the packaging, any marketing spend around that, obviously a team member to help with that in terms of like the social and getting the product out there, and then the actual creation of the product itself. So I don't think there's necessarily like a hard and fast price that anybody can put on it, but that was our experience. Like the 150k did us incredibly well in getting those products kind of like made and out into the market. But you know, it's gone now. I think that's like a good way of looking at things. It was basically like our launch budget for, you could do it on less, you could 100% do it on more. Most brands probably do it on more. But yeah, that's our experience of how much we spent kind of getting the products out there.
So guys, there's your ballpark, 150k.
Yeah,
that was 9 schemes,
you could do it on like tons less. This is just in the context of like the amount that we wanted to launch, the time that we wanted to launch it in, and you know, I talked earlier about the PR around that. You know, that 150k was used for all of that kind of like making a social splash, like doing a little bit of marketing and that sort of thing as well. So it kind of depends. I would say, don't be like, oh my god, I've got to raise 150, or equally don't be like, oh, I spent 500. You know, there's not a right or wrong.
I got an interesting question.
I would just say quickly, sorry, just a final thought on that is that if you're looking at outsourcing your manufacturing, the MOQs are typically 5,000, and that's, you know, we've spoke to a lot of manufacturers. So if you're looking at outsourcing your manufacturing, you do need that startup money. If you're making it yourself in-house, you can definitely manage those startup costs a lot more efficiently, because you can almost like make to order, and you can get a lot of ingredients in smaller quantities. But I will say, if you're looking to outsource your manufacturing, if you think 5,000, you know, units, we have 9 products, you know, it does add up. So
yeah, I bet. Lisa has said, did you launch immediately into retailers, or did you have to build your sales online first?
So we launched immediately into retail because we had already begun the conversations before we really had BYBI like up and running. So we had like deals basically, you know, closing or closed by the time we kind of officially launched and went to market. The direct to consumer versus wholesale piece is something that, and I saw another question about it, it was about our split, direct to consumer versus wholesale. So we've always been wholesale first. We're firm believers in the scale and volume that wholesale provides, as well as the legitimacy of working with retailers. I think that the names of, you know, Harvey Nichols or ASOS give a lot of validity to our brand at an early stage where we would have to spend a lot on marketing. So we use retailers almost like a brand awareness piece. Obviously, there is revenue there, and there's sizable revenue there. And that's how we're able to now go to market and try and raise £1 million because of wholesale. Our direct to consumer is about 5% of our overall revenue. So wholesale is 95%, but that's split across around 80 different retailers in varying sizes. So it's quite spread. And then obviously we have some big players who take up a lot of the revenue there, but it is quite diverse, our spread of wholesalers. There is a lot of pressure on us to have a big direct to consumer revenue source, but for us, we found that wholesale works really well, and so we are going to launch with Sephora in September into Europe and APAC. And that deal has only been made possible by the fact that we have worked with retail, and actually that we understand the process of working with large retailers, because there's no way that we could start to work with Sephora at this early stage if we had been direct to consumer only up until this point. So we're very familiar with export, you know, warehousing, you know, the way that you have to deliver into these big retailers, how they distribute, what their margins are. You know, we're very au fait with that space. So it was really important for us to have that experience with wholesale. So we wholeheartedly believe in wholesale. And there are loads of horror stories around wholesalers ruining your business, and Boots put me out of business and this and that. But if you're smart, you read the contract. I don't think retailers are quite as scary as they're made out to be.
I agree. Well, I think that you need to just have a certain pattern. So you need to be thinking about it from their point of view and understand what their goal is. and then you can probably work quite well with retailers. But I think if you go in and you're completely unprepared, it can be tricky, because then you won't understand how they work, how they operate, what they expect from you, what their expectations are. And I think at that event that we were at a couple of weeks ago at the Beauty Exchange, I think that one buyer who used to work at Selfridges, I can't remember what her name is, was it Wiz? She laid it out perfectly, the kind of expectations of larger retailers. So you just need to think if that's the route that you want to go down, I guess, and just educate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also it's worth like not underestimating the amount of support that goes on post-launch with retailers as well. So the kind of like initial win of a certain retailer is only about like 2% of the work. Like you get the meeting and they place their first order. Amazing, like definitely something to celebrate. But actually the much harder bit is getting those resale, like getting that sell through and getting the repeat orders. And what you have to go in kind of thinking is, I'm going to put X amount of, marketing budget. Like you should start thinking about marketing budget for your retailers. Support, like if they have some more stores, like you maybe need to consider actually physically staffing those stores. So having somebody there, particularly in the department stores. And then also just the amount of your time that it takes to support these guys and their processes and stuff. So wholesale is great for scale and revenue, and you will scale much faster than solely focusing on direct to consumer, but you don't underestimate the amount of work that goes into supporting.
Not on the Wi-Fi.
No, I think, hello? Ah. I think I just lost you and I can't hear you, Gemma. Can you hear me?
I'm back.
Yeah, same.
I wonder if it was Gemma's
Can you
internet
guys
because
see
she
all
was
of
the
us?
host.
Can you hear me now?
Hello? Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. I have no idea what happened there. It just suddenly kind of flicked off my screen. It's so random. Anyway, the joys of modern technology. We have time for maybe a couple of minutes. Oh, yes. So one person said, Gemma is quiet. And now it says, yes, I can hear you now, Gemma. Sorry about that, guys. We have a little technical hit here. Okay, so we've got time for like a couple more. No. This has not been our friend tonight. Okay, so Jenny has asked, what areas of the business did you choose to hire staff for? That's quite a good one.
Yeah, so I think building the team would probably be my answer to like what was one of the biggest challenges that we faced starting out, because going from just you and your co-founder to actually then growing out a team, and more importantly starting to trust other people with your baby of a business is really, really tough. So I think like we focused on one areas where maybe our skill sets didn't lie, or like where we didn't have enough time to kind of really focus. So we obviously have 2 brands, which means 2 sets of social channels and 2 lots of marketing. And what we decided quite quickly was that Clean Beauty Co. in terms of social marketing was all about us. So that was, our faces, and we really needed to manage that. But perhaps it would be useful to bring somebody on to manage the BYBI Clean Beauty, the BYBI social channels. So that was our first hire, was a BYBI social and content exec. And what we looked for there was, you can bring on pretty much anyone to physically post for you. But what we were interested in was somebody that could actually create that content, because from like a design point of view, neither of us had skills in that. So I'm talking about like Photoshop skills, video editing, like just generally that kind of like design aspect we couldn't do. So what we wanted was to find somebody that would be able to do that quite easily, as well as, bring in the kind of experience and knowledge of running social platforms. So we decided to staff out our kind of social outward facing bit first. And that really goes back to what I was saying earlier about, you know, our social channels were how we attract investors and how we attract retailers and stuff. So we knew that they were one of the most important areas of our business, and actually bringing somebody in quite quickly that would be able to help us and support us with that was a good thing to do. We've now got 2 members of staff in marketing. So one looks after paid advertising. So if you're also looking at paid advertising, then again, as a founder, you probably shouldn't be in the weeds of, like, you know, setting up a PPC campaign. It probably makes more sense for somebody who has like proper experience in that to do that for you. And then we've just brought on, and this is, you know, one of our most exciting hires, a new product development executive, and she is a cosmetic chemist graduate. She just graduated from the London College of Fashion. So again, what she's doing there is, whilst we have the background in formulation from studying with you guys, we don't have the science background, so she's filling that science gap for us. So again, we're just like looking for gaps in our experience and skills knowledge, and bringing people in there. And I think that's the best thing that you can do when you start to hire staff, because the attraction is to hire a load of yous, because you'll meet a load of people and you'll connect with the ones who probably like the most like you. But really what you should be doing is looking for ones who are, you know, have what you don't, basically.
Okay, we've got time for one more quick question. And it's been asked twice, but I'm not sure what these terms mean. You guys might know what it means. It says, did you use a safe agreement, convertible note, or equity term sheet for your first money in?
Oh, me. I love a convertible note.
Actually, you always used to ask about that.
I know, I always get a convertible note in somewhere. It's like a running joke with us. Anyway, they're just basically ways to raise money like ahead of like officially doing a round. So to answer the question, we have not yet, much to my dismay, employed any of those. But essentially, it's a way to kind of get quick money before you really like set a valuation around your business.
Okay.
I mean, again, it's a bit of a like nitty-gritty question, because it depends on who your investors are. Some people don't really like them. If someone offers you a convertible note and you really, really need the money, then I guess it's okay. But yeah, it's just better to do a fundraise, raise the money, close it at a set valuation, because it just gets very messy otherwise.
Okay.
But we do. I think the question was a term sheet as well. So you have to have a term sheet when you bring on equity investors. And we used a platform called Seed Legals that I would highly recommend if you're doing an equity fundraise. They're really, really great. They've got like standardized term sheets that you can kind of work off of. Oh, we've lost everyone again.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. I was like, where's Gemma? God.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to remind everyone who's online that we have our courses open for enrollment at the moment. So if you're interested in taking one of the courses that Dominika and Elsie spoke about, then head over to formulabotanica.com and you can see those courses, and they're open for enrollment right now. I just wanted to say thanks to you both for joining us and taking times out of your busy schedule to talk to our community. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
No worries. And have a great evening, and have a great evening, everyone. And I'm really sorry if I didn't get to your question, but you can always find Dominika and Elsie over at Clean Beauty Co. And you can ask your questions there as well. So thank you everyone for joining us and have a great rest of your week, and a great evening. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Bye.